persons keep saying to me, "You got to bring Joe back. You got to get Joe on."
Okay, all right.
You know, he usually tells us as it is. So tonight, you know, we have quite a number of things to talk about. A lot has been happening in recent days, Joe, and among the things we want to discuss tonight, and I want to let you know that as the program, the subject suggests, we want to continue to hold, and very soon we're going to have to say not holding the government accountable, but holding the APNU AFC accountable, because they no longer enjoy that that status or title as a government. So we want to talk tonight a little bit about these outreaches that the government or the APNU AFC is involved in, using state funds and spreading a lot of lies, you know, misinforming people, making new promises and so forth to people. And we have to talk a little bit about the issue of this land grabbing. That seems to be a very, very serious issue that is taking place. And Joe, I know one of our previous programs, matter of fact, last week's program, which we did, we spoke extensively about that. And we have seen some back and forth and some people trying to justify and so forth. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we want to talk about the whole issue of house-to-house registration. The lies and the misinformation is continuing with regards to that. So, Joe, I'm going to bring you in here and let us start. I want us to start off a little about what the APNU AFC has been doing with regards to Mr. Ramjitan confessed on some radio show.
Globespan.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, no, on Brent's Cop show.
Yes, to say that the government, the APNU AFC, is using state funds. Because he's saying that what we're doing on these outreaches is campaign. So these are people who condemn the PPP and accuse the PPP while in power of using state funds to campaign. And they talk about a lean and clean government. They talk about so many promises they made and you know, that they're going to change so many things. And they are there nakedly using state funds to do all the things that they accuse the PPP of, which they haven't been able to prove in any case. So I want to bring you in here about the implications these things have, where government vehicles, monies and so forth are being used by APNU AFC officials. And I understand some of them, some persons are using state vehicles who were not assigned vehicles or who are not entitled to state vehicles to go on some of these events.
Eddie, the thing is, you know, the APNU AFC cabal is a shameless bunch of people and hypocritical. You know, and that is why the worst crime or sin they have committed is this duplicitous behavior, whereby all the things they say they will never do, they are doing. And they are doing tenfold and 100-fold in some cases. You talk about the outreaches, and I mean the outreaches, if it was productive in the sense that it helped people, maybe you could have given them a pass. But the outreaches, they have not helped anyone. Let us look at the issue of land and house lots. Ferguson is saying to people, she is at Golden Grove, people are gathered by the dozens there, and they're indicating to her how long they have applied for house lots. And her response when all of that is that, listen, we are not in a position to give you house lots until a year's time. So that is, the point is, the government was unable to give house lots to people in 5 years that they're in government, because they're in government for the 5th year. And she's now saying, you know, hold on, give us a chance. If you give us a chance, the next go round, the next turn, we will give you the house lots in the next year. You understand me? That is what she has said to the people. And you would note David Patterson, who I normally say, he thinks lying is cute. He is orgasmic when he lies. He is to build a 4-lane highway to Rosignol. He even can't finish the one we left.
I remember that.
Right? He can't finish the one we left in 4 years. But suddenly at election season, he is going to build one to Rosignol. The thing is so stupid because you and I know, Eddie, that there is no money available. There isn't a loan available. There isn't an appropriation of funds available. So it is a blatant lie to say that you will do this. You have, I'm told, the man, War Break man, was in my home village, a Bedford acting Triumph area. He and the dry coconut, Basil Williams. That's a good team, good combination. They were in my home village, and
seems like you're gonna put me in some trouble with the GNBA tonight.
Okay. No. I have not said anything that people don't know. The point is, Eddie, if I fabricate, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
I am saying what people know. People are convinced, all Guyanese, and all the people in the Caribbean and the world that is paying attention, that we have an Attorney General who is a dry coconut. People are convinced about that. They're clear. And Mr. What's his name, Mr. Warbrick, they're going to build a highway in my own village in the back down, straight to the Conservancy.
A highway?
I mean, these are mad people. And then the one that takes the cake. Raphael says God spoke to him. I mean, he is speaking to God on our behalf. He is interceding on our behalf. Basically, that is what he's saying, that listen, they were elected by God, and God will protect them, and God will protect the people. So here you have this man who has assigned himself to do intercession on our behalf.
Prophet.
Yes.
Prophet.
But the point is, and you have all of that is happening there. And whilst all of that is happening, Eddie, that is so laughable, the people are not getting service. Because you ask the people who go to these outreaches, they're leaving there without any resolution of their problem. Ask the fisherman, ask the farmer, ask the person whose family have some serious medical condition that needs help to do some surgery, if the response from these people who have been spending all this money, as I just said earlier, the people who need house lots, who have applied for house lots, they cannot say to a person, go in the morning at the Ministry of Housing, CHP, and I can guarantee you, these dozens and these hundreds of persons, you can have your house lots wherever, because they have not developed anything. So those are the lies, and then we have, not to be left out, even though he's not part of the cabinet, he got his own outreach. David Hines is saying that he's going to fight like a tiger so that you can give $5,000 US per person yearly, from the oil money that we're to get. So the oil money, the guy, they don't even know how much we will get, but he's saying, okay, he will fight like a tiger. So all of these people, they're just saying things. And who is Balder Lawrence? We'll get to that. That is a specific point with registration and the issue. But you have all of these lies that they're peddling to citizens. Eddie, I'm comforted by the fact that I know the Guyanese people, they're smarter than that. They're wiser than that. And that is why I get so angry at times, because what these people are doing is that they continue to insult the Guyanese people. They think that you can just, after neglecting people, after taking people for a ride at election time, you can just go to them and make fair promises again, and they will just, like that, just vote for you.
And we have to, and I think one of the points we want to make, Joe, is the fact that a lot of monies are being spent on these things. I know recently they had a supplementary budget in the National Assembly.
There's
where they
300 and some
$300 million
$300 million more.
more than $300 million for that matter, to go to use in part of these outreaches. And we can remember what happened at Coffee Square, Square of the Revolution, the very first outreach, just outside the office of the president. The people could have gone to the office of the president and reached them.
Yes.
They went just outside the office of the president. Mr. Harmon, then minister, they had to get a special chair, and they created these
air-conditioned tents,
AC and all sorts of things. That's the lavish spending, and I understand the huge after parties when these outreaches are done.
But Eddie, it's a cesspit of corruption. You see, I mean, we're focusing on the old, it's a scheme, it's a scam. It is not to serve the citizens or help them. It is to procure services from people's family and their cronies. The tents and all the things, the vehicles, all of these things, you have to procure them. And so it is a cesspool of corrupt deeds. Everything is happening rapidly. So there is no tendering process. All this money that is spending for these outreaches, there is no process by which the government procures anything procedurally. It is people who are utilizing the period in whatever region they go, supporters of the government, cronies and family and friends of ministers who are assigned and to provide services. Whether it's catering, whether it's the drinks and the liquor and the sport and all that kind of thing. So the whole this $300 million and more counting, it is just corruption that is taking place, left, right, and center with these outreaches.
I want to bring you to another issue, Joe, because I want us to at least get most of them in during our time. And this has to do, you mentioned, I think you touched on it briefly at the end there, with regards to the level of nepotism and cronyism by this government. And we're seeing it nakedly, right? And I want to say from the onset that this whole argument that Eric Phillips and Charles Sears and all the others are bringing about race with regards to the giveaway and the handing out and the transfer, if you want to call it, of large tracts of state land, that argument about race is a dead argument. It holds no water. Because we have been talking about HDM Labs, we have been talking about all these other companies that
famous Larry Singh,
people who are not necessarily Afro-Guyanese, who are part and parcel of this corruption. It's a small group. It's a small group of Afro-Guyanese elites and Indo-Guyanese elites who are financier, Badal and the others who are financier of the AFC and the APNU that are benefiting. And that's the point we're making. You're giving out thousands of acres of land to a small group of people. Forget the race. This is a small group of people. And I think the leader of the opposition would have made the point continuously. The people that he listed there are persons who are directly inside the office of the president. So this is nothing about race. These are people who are connected directly to the office of the president that are benefiting.
But the point is, Eddie, is that you would note some of these people pride themselves as black nationalists. They pride themselves as spokespersons for us, you know. And I am making the point. I made it earlier, and I make it again. Those people, they don't speak for me. This African speak for himself. So these people put themselves out there. And I say to Afro-Guyanese people, you have to speak for yourself. Because these guys who purports to speak for you, They don't care about you and they don't speak for you. The lands that these guys have gotten through their relationship with the government, not one of those parcels of land, Eddie, is to develop a low-cost housing scheme for people of African origin. You understand me? Not one of that, and then they have the gumption to bring the race argument into the picture. When it is personal interest, it has nothing to do with the ordinary, the land grabbing. And we must make this clear. The land grabbing has nothing to do with the ordinary person of African descent. It has to do with these persons who purport to speak on our behalf, who are utilizing their relationship with the cabal to plunder and to grab lands here, there, and everywhere. And what you note is that it is land grabbing because most of the people listed who the opposition leader spoke about and who is on the list, it is not one place or one parcel of land. Most of these people are several places at the same time they were given large tracts of land. Most of the people. So it is clear that it is a land grabbing, right? Because people are in different counties, in different regions at the same time. They're taking these lands, and I mean, it is not for developmental purposes. Ben himself said so. Trevor Ben himself said that none of these guys who were given large tracts of land, thousands of acres of land, they presented any project proposal to the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission. He said so. Not even the guys who he gave the river to on the West Coast, and who he gave the ocean to. And by now, I think he promised that he would have brought forth the information regarding those transactions. If you recall, Eddie, he spoke about serious transaction, he spoke about Eric Phillips transaction, he spoke about some transaction in Pomeroon, he spoke in passing about the Lowingfield transaction, he didn't give us any details. He didn't speak about the transaction of the guy who works with Armand in the Ministry of the Presidency, who got the land at Dalarwala and Bohemia. He didn't speak about that. And more so, he didn't speak to the land, to the issue where the company who has 240 acres extending in the Demerara River, in the location where the bridge is likely to go, and at the same time got 50 acres at the best foreshore projecting into the ocean. We're yet to hear from Mr. Ben how those transactions happen. Did they happen simultaneously? As he said, did the people promise that they will bring a project plan later? Because he said, not one of them. And you know what is shocking, Eddie, is that here you have a public officer just giving out thousands of acres of land with not even a project proposal presented as to what I will do with this land.
Wow.
So we want to say, and let me say this again to people of African descent, don't let these guys fool you that they have your interest at heart. They don't speak for you. They're not speaking for you. They're not grabbing up land for your benefit and your welfare.
Their personal benefit.
It's for their personal benefit.
And these are all connected. If you look at how they're happening, Joe, they're all connected.
All of them are connected to the cabal. Most of them are working for the cabal.
And what is interesting, the fact that it's already 2 weeks, going on the third week, since the leader of the opposition presented facts, presented evidence, maps, with the names of the people, the transaction information,
the file number and all the
numbers, everything. And these people are working in the president's office. And the president didn't see it fit. He met with the press last, Friday. He didn't see it fit to make any public statement about what is happening. He didn't see it fit because he has no intentions of saying the president is probing and I don't want to water it down, but the piracy attack that happened in Suriname's waters. He is probing. He's probing some death threat. He probed some death threat against him. And he probes everything else. We have a situation where a group of people from his office benefited from thousands of acres of prime land where a lot of facilities that will fit into the oil and gas sector, which could have earned us millions, hundreds of millions of US dollars. The lands where those facilities could have gone, and Deepwater Harbor as well, were given to a few people in his office, and he don't see a need to probe that. He don't see, all Mr. Ben is concerned about how the information, and that by itself is a confirmation, because Mr. Ben didn't deny anything that Mr. Jagdeo said.
He tried to justify.
He tried to justify, which simply means that it is the truth.
He didn't at all say that this is not factual, right? But again, we are waiting on Mr. Ben to tell us about the river, the land that has been given away.
How do you give away the Atlantic Ocean? Who does that?
And the river.
And the river. I mean, come on.
You know,
as funny as it sounds, a serious matter.
Man has given away the Demerara River.
We're going to take some calls, though, Joe, and the numbers are on the screen. And we urge you guys to give us a call. We want to hear from you. But in the meantime, you're waiting on the phone. I think I want us to talk a little bit briefly about the issue of this lie that keep coming out of so many people in the APNU AFC, including those that are sitting or that would have held, I prefer to use the term, that would have held ministerial portfolios when the APNU AFC was the legal government. As it is now, they are not. About this, they're trying to confuse people, to tell people, and I see Valda Lawrence is saying that the PUP is afraid of a clean list. I want Valda Lawrence to tell us exactly how the list is not clean. Because four elections between 2011 and 2018, the same list was used, updated by way of claims and objections, and they had, in between of those, they had a few periods of continuous registration. The 2011 elections, the APNU AFC didn't question the results. They didn't say that the list is dirty and they didn't win the elections. The 2015 elections, which got them into office by a slim majority, a few votes, they didn't question the results of the elections. The 2016 local government elections, they didn't question the results. They start questioning after the 2018 local government elections when they realized together, the AP and the AFC, even though they ran separately, they got about 30% of the votes, just over 30%.
Well, the thing is, Eddie, it is so much a fallacy that it's laughable. The list that Ms. Lawrence spoke, and once she went on to say that the list, if you have new registration, they stand a better chance of getting a landslide victory. I mean, everybody is smoking cheap weed, even before decriminalization. You know, all of these people start to say that, they start to smoke weed. She is saying that if there is a house-to-house registration with a clean list, as she says, they don't want a charandas to happen to them again, and therefore their projection is that they will get a landslide victory. The point is, let me say this, for young people, the People's National Congress in all its dispensation has never gotten more than 42% of votes in this country. Never, ever. That's the first point. The second point is the People's National Congress, in conjunction with all and sundry, barely got about 4,000 votes more than the People's Progressive
Which is
Party.
questionable.
Which is
Which is still questionable.
Right? But the point is, all and sundry together barely got about 4,000 votes. And the point is, that is when they were able to peddle believable lies coming into 2015. Now, the Guyanese people, when you have lost credibility, when you have proven to be a liar and an hypocrite, you have to be stone crazy to be suggesting to us, to the people of this country, that you are likely to get some landslide victory. I mean, you must be smoking something, you know? I see David Hines also on the same bandwagon, saying they're likely to win by 2 seats. So all of them, Valda is saying it's a landslide. But the point is this. If you note, Eddie, the issue about lists always comes up when they're beaten into the corner with something. Check it. The issue about the list, they were quiet, at least since we came from the CCJ when the consequential orders were to be given. If you note, it is the same day, I think, or the following day, after they had to come down from the pedestal of Patterson will be their man as chairman of the Elections Commission. If you know, it is after the recognition that, listen, the chairman of the Elections Commission shall be selected from a list presented by the leader of the opposition to the president. It is then Valda they jump back. So every time, you check it, it dies for a period. So, but what they're doing, as I pointed out some time ago, it's a deliberate attempt to give some hope to their supporters. That is what this list are. And as I said earlier, and I repeat, the conversation of the list coming out of Congress Place and the chairman of the People's National Congress Reform, it is not a pre-elections conversation. It is peddled pre-election, but it's a conversation to be utilized to give satisfaction and solace to their supporters after they would have lost the elections. That is what this conversation about the list is for. I see the young lady who graced our first decision she made when she became minister. She fired a whole lot of people at the Public Service Ministry. I saw her, she was on her own outreach, not part of the ministerial outreach. She was on a WP outreach. And she is saying, tell the people boastfully that house-to-house registration we will have. It's the same thing like they said to the people, 34 is a majority of 65. And then they went on, they said to the people, Patterson will be there as the chairman of the Elections Commission. No matter what the PPP do. No matter all the protests, no matter what the PPP do. And now they have come down. So the final strategic discourse, Eddie, is the list. Every other thing they have been beaten in the corner and silenced about. So that is the reason why they have jumped on back on the conversation about the list, so that it is to question, it is to attempt to put pressure on the person who is likely to be selected as chairman of the Guyanese Elections Commission. But the long and short of it, the Constitution speaks to having elections in 3 months.
Good evening. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. I think we lost our one there. So the numbers are on the screen. I would urge you to call. But I want to be, in the meantime we're waiting, Joe, I want to re-emphasize, because I think we've been making this point over and over and over, there is absolutely no need for house-to-house registration. We made the point that the continuous registration exercise captures persons who are 14 years and above during those registration exercises. Let me take this call now. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I found your partner over the other side. You are doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very
What I
much.
want to tell you, right, is that the problem, if we have the election, we have to stand up to see that they don't win the election. That's the only problem we have, right? That's the only problem. This is the most important part of it, because they know about rigging since Mr. Falls born and time.
Co-
Thanks for
Caller,
coming
we
through.
hear you loud and clear, but
Thanks for
I
coming
just say for you and all the people who are listening, I just say the old saying that you know that this time in a long time. That is all I will say regarding the matter. It is not 1970s and 1980s.
Hi, good evening, sir. Hello, good evening.
Hey, good evening. These people say they're confident, but they're cowards. They say they're confident. They will win the election, no, they say. But they're coward with the election.
Thanks for coming through, brother. Thank you so much. Good evening. Hi, good evening.
I'd like to,
Hello?
I would like to make a contribution.
Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
I like your panel, and I like the.
You have to lower the volume of your television though, because it's giving us a feedback. Yes.
Hold on.
That might be a bit difficult. Sorry, I have to cut you off there, but the feedback is affecting us. Good evening.
Eddie,
Hi, good evening, brother.
good evening to you and your panel. I want to find out something for you, man. I'm a holder of a national identification card. And there's an ad on the television stating that if you have been registered, you have to re-register again, or else you could be charged an imprisonment. What is the purpose for this registration? I am the holder of an ID card to do legitimate business in the country. Am I right?
Yes, you are.
So if they were doing a household registration or a new registration, that gives you a prerogative that therefore means that they will change your ID card and give you a new number.
Well, caller, that is the attempt, but as I
But
said,
they can't put it like that.
as
All
I
right, so
said,
before you go, what I'll have, Joe worked with the Elections Commission. I think he is an authority to speak on that. So I'll have him respond to you now to give you some information, all right? Thanks for coming through.
the thing is, the advertisement continues. Remember, they did that issue of a house registration was one of Patterson's conversation. Patterson is no more, and therefore, GCOM has continued running their ads. I suspect wasting money. The ads continue to run, but there is no decision by the commission about house registration. First point. Second point is there will be no house registration because the Constitution takes precedent over all the other things, because the election should have been held already. And as we speak, the government is in office illegally since the 21st
Of March.
This government can only be legalized via a two-thirds majority in the National Assembly. It looks like it has not dawned on even the president and his cabal, that to legitimize or legalize all of this illegality, you would need the help of the opposition.
There has to be.
It has to be. Because we read everything that is happening, and that's why all the decisions the government is making and all these pronouncements, they're illegal in nature. Because after the 3 months, no election was held. We're already in another 3 months, going 4 months because we're in July. And therefore, it's a government that has held on to office illegally. And therefore, my friend, I wouldn't lose sleep about the house-to-house registration. The People's Progressive Party, we have already indicated. The important thing, the two important matters that we have to deal with. And one, we have already set in motion how to deal with it. That is electing or selecting a chairman for the Guyana Elections Commission. And the second one is to hold elections expeditiously. Those are the two matters. Don't lose sleep about on the ad that they continue to have on the television.
All right, so we're going to try. We have probably about 6 minutes or so to go, so we're going to try to take a few more calls too before we wrap things up. Good evening.
Eddie.
Hi, good evening, brother.
One for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Listen to me. I got 3 ID cards already. Right?
Hope it's not 3 ID card at one time.
Listen to what I'm saying. I got 3 ID cards. I got the red one, got the first green one, second green one. Now, I just want to know something. What these people doing? I don't know if they know what they're doing or what they said they're doing. You understand? Because I can't understand. A man like Basil Williams and these people don't understand that if you got a parliament of 65 people, how could it be taught to 4B, you understand, the greater half, you understand? And when I went to school, I never did I just think arithmetic. And in them time, I never
Caller, just to say to you, that matter, we have already resolved it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
right?
to this, if these people can hold on to that, right? This is how foolish these people is. You understand? And another thing, right? The Constitution shows you clear, right? Now, what the Constitution is telling you is that Article 160, something I can't remember because it's on my bed, right? Tell you that so long as the government is fall, right?
106.6 and 106.7.
Right. Tell you the government fall, right? You're supposed to hold election in 90 days, right? They're saying now that the CCJ, as Harman is saying, got to interpret how clear more these people want to interpret, you tell me. And let the people foolish, ignorant.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming through.
Caller, we hear you loud and clear. We hear you loud and clear. And that's why I say to people, Eddie, that, you know, today when they say to people about the list and all the conversation about the list, I say to the people, these are the same people who said to you since December 21st that 34 is a majority of 65. These were the same people. So you cannot continue to hold on to words that they have uttered. Right? So don't lose sweat on that.
All right, we take another call. Good evening.
Hi, good evening, sir. Eddie, I love this program. I'm excellent. What I want to say is I can't come high boys to course. These people are like a Kamuri way. They are whole life here Kamuri Kelso. And I'm all Lego. So because like a Kamuri government, the Grazian, the Harman, and Basil as well, I am not done. Kamuri, the man is not respect themselves. Can carry political visual. I go, thank you.
Thanks
The point is that as we have done and we continue to do, all the people of this country, we have to continue to fight to ensure that democracy reigns. That is the bottom line of all the, the PPP is in the forefront of the fight. But the fight for a democratic state belongs to all Guyanese. And we urge every one of us, every one of you, to speak up and speak out on the matter. It is not a matter for just Eddie and Hamilton and Jack Dew and Irfan Ali, and so it is a matter that will affect all Guyanese.
At home and abroad.
Right. Regardless who you might have supported in the past or who you would have voted for in the past. And that's why we ask for all of us to raise our voices that we will not go down, the road of where we went 1970s, 1980s, and early 1990s. And for the young people who never experienced it, I don't want you to have the experience. And therefore, all of us, we have a duty to continue to fight for elections to be held at the earliest possible time.
And I want to make the point, Joe, before we wrap things up. I had started to explain that there is no need for house. And we said this so many times, but again, when you hear these kinds of comments coming from people who are supposed to be responsible leaders in society, that claims and objections is enough to update the list. I don't want to say sanitize because the list is not dirty. Contrary to what they're saying. The claims, you can make a claim to get onto the list. It's like you are being registered. You're not on the list, you want to get on the list, you are qualified to be a voter, you make a claim. You can make an objection if you see a name on the list that is not supposed to be on the list. As simple as that. That is all you need to do. You need to remove names.
If you change your name, if you transfer, you move from one location to the next, you go and you do a transfer of your name.
Exactly. House-to-house registration is going to capture people who are 14 years old. And they can't vote in elections.
No, but the important thing is that it would disenfranchise persons who are already properly registered. Take, for instance, students who are studying overseas. Those persons, people who work overseas, people who might be on vacation overseas. All of those persons, because they will not be present at the time of their, when this so-called house-to-house registration happens, they will not be on the list.
I want to say this quickly, Joe, before we go, because we're almost out of time. And I think you missed this point. The statement by Mr. David Hines, I know you mentioned, but somebody just messaged me here to remind me that Mr. David Hines is quoted in sections of the media to say that Afro-Guyanese can be vexed with the government. It's okay to be vexed because, you know, they did nothing for you, but still vote for them. In essence, he is telling an educated nation like Guyana, don't vote policies. It doesn't matter. Whether these people fail, it doesn't matter. You vote race.
Yeah, they can.
And that's a dangerous thing.
They can oppress you. They can plunder. They can be the most corrupt lot. But the fact that they are your kind,
you must vote
for them. And that is the reason why I started off, earlier I was making the point, speaking directly to Afro-Guyanese. Do not let these people be your spokespersons. You be your own spokesperson. Speak on your own behalf.
I have to wrap here now, Joe. We're out of time. So I want to thank you very much for being part of the program. We're going to be back here next week. Probably come next week and continue this conversation.
Okay. And Eddie, you started the program too late. So
the time that we have. See you next week.